Help support the channel during the adpocalypse by visiting our Amazon store for gear like the giant squid clip-on microphone. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo, this is 3 Buck Theater, and this is my review, my what I think, of South Park Season 21, Episode 10, Splatty Tomato. Now, this is the Season 10 season finale, and after last week's cliffhanger ending with the nuclear annihilation of Toronto, Ontario, you figure this week would have brought something epic to the table. It would have really made it out to be something big, worthy of the week-long wait to see how things were going to wrap up for the 21st season of the show. And honestly, I'm disappointed. I mean, it was not a good episode. Not as bad as the season premiere, in which case it was getting progressively better, but ultimately the episode fell very flat. And I'm not very happy with it at all. So this episode didn't know what it wanted to be, right? It's trying to make fun of Stranger Things and lampoon it by having Mr. Garrison, or President Garrison, walk around the town of South Park asking people what his approval rating is. And of course, you know, that does tie in a little bit with news today. This would be the 8th of December, 2017. I'm a couple days behind after the episode came out, where Trump's approval rating, according to Trump, is at 45%, but more realistically, it's actually down to 32%. But the Splatty Tomato part is actually making fun of Rotten Tomatoes and the tomato meter score and how much of an influence, well, supposed influence, that has on movies. Even going as far at one point in the episode to say that his Splatty Tomato score is lower than the Nut Job 2, which, because they don't relate in any way, shape, or form, the joke just didn't make any sense. It just wasn't funny. And that's something that pretty much kind of sums up most of the episode. It just wasn't funny. The boys and everyone, they're all talking about how they keep seeing Garrison around town. Then they all kind of reference Stranger Things and the movie It. But this, you know, Stranger Things was never even really explored as being a theme. Right? It was something that was just tossed in, whereas Tweek is riding home from school and he sees a red balloon with "Make America Great Again" on it, which I thought that was actually pretty good. That bit was great. But, you know, that of course was then balloon was popped, and there's Garrison right there asking him what the you know, the Splatty Tomato score is, what his approval rating is. And then they go, you know, that's when all the boys meet up and everything else, and they're talking about it. Then Randy's all like, "Oh, I've seen Stranger Things too." Then here comes Token. "I've seen Stranger Things in It," you know. And then Eric's like, "I saw It in theaters." I mean, it just ran on for too long. The episode just didn't make any bit of sense. And then, of course, it ties in back to PC Principal and Vice Principal Strong Woman, and how they, at the end of the last episode, you know, had sparks fly, and we'd come to find out that they're hiding their relationship from from everybody else, going as far as to have the Student of the Day award going out to a restaurant. This time they take Butters out there. It's a way to double as a date. And the rest of the town is trying to stop Garrison. They're trying to get rid of Garrison, so they have everyone lock up their you know, their garbage bins and have no food laying out. So if you can't feed him, he'll go away. And then you have one family, the family of the Whites, which again was a running gag for, like, the Whites are the ones who want President Trump or President Garrison, and they kept beating it with a dead horse, and or beating it like it was a dead horse. Like, I got the joke right off the bat, but they kept doing it, and it just stopped being funny. Even ultimately, they were trying to lampoon Trump supporters, that every time you criticize Trump, they come back with, "Well, what about Hillary?" And the "what about" propaganda originated, you know, in the Soviet Union. So, I mean, that wasn't explored at all. The history of the joke wasn't explored at all. It was just the whataboutisms. And we all know people that do the whataboutisms. I've done them myself. I probably continue to do it myself, because you never really think about it when you're trying to draw that comparison. But oftentimes they don't have anything to do with one another. So, you know, the town's trying to come together to stop Garrison, to get rid of him, but the sheriff makes sure to tell everyone, you can't shoot him, you can't shoot the president, you can't talk about shooting the president, you can't do any of that stuff. And then one guy's like, "Well, can we, like, you know, reference a friend shooting him?" You know, like, "No, stop, we just want to get him to move on to another town." Even though, legally speaking, you can say you want the president assassinated, you just can't call for it. There's legalities there. You can say some things, but not all things. So the town is doing their own thing. The boys are trying to go and hunt down Ike. Ike has been called back to Canada, so to speak, or to stand up for his people after Kyle led the millennials against Canada last episode that ended up nuking Toronto. And again, that did nothing. Kyle felt bad, but millennials against Canada died. There was no constant referencing back to the original movie. There was nothing else that came from it. It was just that they set it up and then they let it drop. Like, this episode feels like they just ran out of ideas, kind of like the season finale of last season to an extent, when they had set up for a Hillary win, but when that didn't happen, they had to quickly rewrite the show. And here they just also kind of fell apart as well. The boys all set off trying to find Ike, trying to do it to an 80s, soundtrack in order to be like any of those films like The Goonies or Stand By Me from back in the day. And they have trouble fighting over which songs to play. None of them are any good. Craig and Tweak like Pandora. Stan pulls out Spotify. Both encounters the same problems, which again shows you that the library of each music service is kind of limited depending on which playlist you're going to and if you have a free or premium account. Again, completely, like, I get the joke, but they just had nowhere to go with it. But the key arc here, I think probably the best arc actually was Heidi and Cartman. And this was a long time coming. This was a very long time coming. I've talked about this a lot over the course of the season, how the Heidi-Cartman relationship has become ultimately just destructive. She's become the new Cartman, and they probably just need to end it because it's essentially run its course. Now, there was a part in the episode where Kyle was trying to get everyone together to go after Ike, and Heidi and Eric are like, "Oh, I'll come along," and Kyle's like, No, you're fine. And she's like, "Oh, why? You don't want me to come along because I wasn't into you like you were into me?" And then he comes back with, "Well, I'm not into who you've become," and that kind of sparked this, I guess you could say, train of thought for Heidi, where as they're traveling through South Park, they go to the bridge where on 2 seasons ago, or no, last season, she threw her cell phone into the river, effectively killing herself socially at that point. Then they go to where Cartman dressed her up as Gretel and tried to get the witch from the Halloween episode to kill her, and she starts realizing what she's become at the hands of Cartman. She starts questioning things about her own life, why she did this, and her subconscious comes out of her old self, and she starts battling that. Of course, it comes to a head at the end of the episode where Ike actually ends up capturing Trump or Garrison. They take him back to the center of town. The town is all amiss because they discovered that the PC principal and VP Strong Woman were in fact having sex in a tent, and that was enough to get everyone to vomit because what coworker would want to put a penis in another coworker? Again, jokes about our current state of affairs involving the hashtag Me Too and all these other things, but just not nailing it, just almost giving it away, just giving this joke away to where it just didn't really work out very well. But at the end, everyone's at the town, back at town, and they got Garrison and the Whites. Bob White, the father, the patriarch of the family, pulls out a gun and starts saying, like, he's the president, we got to protect him and everything else. And, clearly, again, hearkening back to like the 32% of Trump's approval rating being predominantly white America, and that having a big part of like, white people and feeling left out of the conversation, or no one ever cares how the white folk are doing. And I mean, it was an interesting social take on where things are right now, but there wasn't any meat or any teeth behind it. It was simply just not even commentary, just acknowledging that there's this particular part of things. Now, that being said, the Heidi ends up realizing, where she is, what she's become, and she does put it back on Eric, and she steals Mr. White's gun, and she points it at Eric, and she's trying to break up with them, and Eric takes the gun, and he points it at himself, and he's like, I'll kill me. And she says, you can be the victim, I'm not. Because she makes a good line where she says that if you can justify, or if you can like be a victim enough, you can justify doing anything in the name of being a victim. And that, I felt, was a very interesting take, because we've seen a lot of that coming forward over the course of the last few months with everything in Hollywood. And not only that, but just victim culture over the course of the past, 5 years, roughly, where people who say that they're victims do abhorrently terrible things, and they do it in the name of being a victim, and they justify it as a result of that. So that was the only culturally poignant part that was a commentary from the creators of South Park, obviously hearkening back to stuff they've said over the course of the past couple seasons. But again, it kind of summarized this relationship between Heidi and Cartman, and then at the end, Cartman has a gun on himself, and he said he's going to do it, and then he doesn't. But then they realize that Garrison has in fact gotten away from it, or gotten away. He's back out into the wilderness. He's back out doing his thing, and the only people who can stop him now are the whites, which might have been, again, another bit of cultural commentary there. Again, slight commentary, essentially saying, yes, this is, the white people of this country are going to be the ones that will stop Donald Trump. It was a lazy episode. It was not a good one. I was not happy with it. Which is unfortunate, because the season was good. The season set up a lot of stuff. It was back to some of its original form of some episodes. It didn't know what it wanted to say here. And I think that's in part because Trey and Matt don't know what they want to say. I think they don't know how they want to proceed. I don't think they know how they want to criticize the current administration. They wanted to move away from Trump. They felt compelled to talk about Trump. They wanted to move away from that, but I think they got dragged back in because of how crazy and volatile and nuts it has been. And of course, every time something like this happens in our society, they lampoon it. But when it becomes so just insane in terms of everything else that's gone on, when real life starts to usurp fiction in terms of satire or perceived satire, I think they just ran out of ideas. Now, I'm not saying South Park should end. I'm not saying they should, cancel the show and just leave it where it's at. No. They keep it going. I love the show. I think they should focus more on doing stuff like the Fractured Butthole or the Stick of Truth or Imagination Land, or, the Shakening, or no, the Startling, whatever it is. Like episodes like that, episodes that have arcs that take a couple different episodes to get to the end of that, and then tell these crazy broad stories that clearly lampoon where we are in society without focusing on a specific group or president. And that way, I think they'll be better. So maybe in season 22, they can, in fact, hashtag make South Park great again. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.